Today we are going to talk about boob jobs, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of different types of implants and the overall health risks of them. Now, I have considered getting breast implants for a long time, but I haven't actually gotten them. Now, a bunch of you might click away in the video right now, but I have to be honest with you, and I've considered it many times, but I haven't actually gotten one. Now, I'm attempting to take off a bra on camera. YouTube probably hates me right now, but that's my actual boob size. So let's be honest with each other, I do not have breast implants. But I've considered them so many times, and I actually got a consult a few years ago, and I decided not to do it. But recently I heard a lot about the scares when it comes to breast implants and how people have been taking them out or considering not getting them anymore, even if they've already booked like their surgery and everything, because they got scared out by all the news and all the information that's come out about them. So I decided it was time to re-educate myself and decide if they were worth it for me, and by doing that I could also help other people make that decision for themselves. So we're going to talk about the general overall risks of implants, then we're going to talk about the different types and the pros and cons of each, because yes, there are different types of implants. Yes, they make a difference on what they look like, what they feel like. The cost associated changes depending on the type, so that could possibly be a con for some of them. And then I'm going to go over whether I think it's worth it for me. And you'll have to decide for yourself if you think it's worth it. I can't make that decision for you. And for all the people that clicked on this video and are against implants and plastic surgery, I'm not sure why you're watching this video, but that is not the space for this. I am all about self-love. Do what makes you feel happy inside. Do not do this to please others. Do not do this for any bad reasons, depending on what you decide is bad. But either way, do this for yourself because you genuinely just want bigger boobs. And I genuinely do. Like, this isn't for other people. I just like bigger boobs, and I was not blessed with those when I was born or through puberty. And if you want to skip forward, I am going to put the timestamps down below to let you know the different parts of the video. So if you want to skip over the health risks and you don't want to hear about that, you can go to the specific type of implant you want to look at, and we'll talk about it further in the video. But right now we're going to talk about the general risks. And I decided to actually pull up the FDA's risk list. So it's basically a list of the general risks of getting implants. And the first one it lists is the idea of implant complications. So you can have a change in sensation or feeling of your breasts and your nipples. And for me personally, that wasn't as much of a risk for me because some people say they don't have as much feeling afterwards, and I barely got any feeling now, so that's not going to make much of a difference for me, but it might be a consideration for you. It's not that high of a risk, but there are people that say that that sensation does decrease with implants. And the next one it lists is the idea of additional surgeries, whether you take your implants out or keep them in. Because even if you decide down the road to remove them, you might still possibly have complications associated with getting breast implants that cause surgeries down the road, even when they are out of your body again. Because we are talking about putting something foreign inside of our bodies, and we are talking about going through an elective surgery. It is a choice, and I am not a judgmental surgery implants person, but I still want to be educated about that decision, so that's why we are talking about it today. And that next thing that it talks about, the idea is the additional surgeries, is even if you decide to keep them in, you're going to have surgeries down the road, because the expiration date on your implants is not your lifespan. Just like an IUD, they only last so many years, and then you have to get them replaced or just taken out and not replaced. So there are future costs associated with implants and future surgeries that could have future risks associated with them. But to leave surgeries aside, because we talked about that enough, the next thing it brings up is more complications specifically with the implants. So you can have capsular contracture. I probably did not say that right, but I'll put it on the screen. It is scar tissue that forms around the implant and squeezes the implant. And that is a serious thing and can cause serious health problems. But the risks of that happening depend on the type of implant and a lot of different factors, but in general, the risks of it are not that high. The FDA has cleared breast implants to go into human bodies and says they are generally safe. Generally. And then the next thing it brings up is the idea of rupture or deflation of the implant. So the implants are not indestructible. They can break, they can leak, they can have things happen to them just like anything else that is human made. It can break. The next thing that it brings up is a pretty serious, bigger thing that is more recently found out about, and that is the idea of breast implant associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma. That is a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is the cancer of the immune system. And that is more recently discovered on the risks for that, and we're actually going to go over that a little bit with a specific type of implant, because there has been studies shown that a specific implant has a small risk of that happening, and it has been documented. And the next thing is connective tissue disease, breast cancer, reproductive problems, and it's not always guaranteed that breast implants are associated with those later problems, because it could be additional factors that caused it, but there is a chance that the breast implants could have been the cause of these happening to different people. And the next one it brings up, which I think associates a lot with the recent scares and people being like, we don't talk about the risks of implants enough. It's not taken seriously. People say that it's all in our heads. And that is the idea of systematic symptoms. And it lists that on the list, but it doesn't really go into detail much about what it means. So I found an article on the National Library of Medicine that went over this, and it is breast implant illness, or BII, and it says it is poorly defined cluster of non-specific symptoms attributed by patients as being caused by their breast implant. And these symptoms include joint pain, skin and hair changes, concentration, fatigue, and many patients complain that their BII symptoms are dismissed as psychosomatic. And they just think that it's all in their heads and that this isn't really going on with them. But as more and more women have been reporting this, it's been taken more and more seriously, but there's not enough information at this point for us really to know what is and what isn't true and what is and isn't a risk when it comes to that. But I figured it was important to mention because I think that's why recently we've been talking about implants more. And then it brings up the idea of breastfeeding and effects on children. And for breastfeeding, it says that some people can't breastfeed after they get implants, but the risks of that are actually very low. And the effects on children aspect says that there's no real definite proof on whether silicone leaks into the breast milk or doesn't. So there's nothing to say that it does, but there's also nothing to say that it concrete doesn't. There was a small study done that said that it actually doesn't pass through, but there's no concrete way to test it. So really, I don't know why it lists that on the list. But overall, those are all of the ones that it goes over. And then Mayo Clinic says both saline and silicone implants are considered safe for breast augmentation and breast reconstruction. Research on safety and effectiveness of both types of implants is ongoing. And that is true for anything you choose to do that's elective and non-elective. It is going to take time before we know more information on it, but people have been getting breast implants for a very long time, and there are many studies done to prove that they are pretty generally safe. So now that we've gone over the medical aspect and 99% of you have probably left, I would really appreciate the ones that did say to hit the like button and the subscribe button down below. I post new videos every single Wednesday helping you figure out adulting while I'm attempting to figure it out myself. And I am going to show many videos in the future on going through the journey myself if I decide to get them, which I'm 99% sure I'm going to get them. TBD on when, but either way, let's go into the different types of implants, because when I first discovered the idea of changing my boobs because they weren't growing, I was like, what do I do? Breast implant surgery. And then I'm like, it's that simple, right? It's not. There are 3 main different types of implants: saline breast implants and structured saline implants, silicone implants, and one that you might not actually have fully heard of, and that is cohesive silicone gel implants. But a term you probably heard more is gummy bear breast implants or form stable implants. They're all under that same family, but the most common term used is the gummy bear implants. And they're becoming way, way, way more popular, but we're not starting with that one. So let's go into saline. And if you didn't know, saline is actually sterile salt water. So of all the materials to put in your body, this one is the most natural And a pro to them is if they rupture, it actually absorbs naturally into your body. Obviously you don't want them to rupture, but at least one of the pros is it can be naturally absorbed into the body, unlike the other implants which can't be. And another thing associated with the saline specific implants is the fact that you can adjust the size easier because it is a liquid. So they can take some out, they can add some in to adjust for size. So this is especially good for people that have different breast sizes, but not by too much. So it's like you wouldn't want to get a whole nother implant size, but you might want to take a little bit out or a little bit in to adjust for that difference. And then you can also produce the highest volume, highest sitting breast implants. So it's called the upper pole fullness and projection. So basically how high they are and how much they project out, it is the most effective with saline. So if you're looking for that star look, I feel like I have to like beep out that word. I'm gonna probably have to beep out that word, but you know what that word is that I just said. If you're looking for, sometimes they call it the Baywatch ones, then that saline is probably the best option. So AKA meaning, let's talk about the cons of it. They're actually less popular, and they're less popular for a reason. They don't look or feel as natural as some of the other options. But some people want that really fake, like extreme breast look, and they don't per se want them to feel and look natural. But it could be a con for some people because the feel of them will not feel as similar to breasts. In most cases, people are going to know you have implants when they're feeling them. It's slightly firm and less natural feeling than the other options, and it actually doesn't hold up as well. Implants are more likely to rupture or deflate when it comes to these breast implants, but it is safer if they do rupture and leak, but it's more likely to happen because it's not as sturdy and doesn't hold up as well as some of the other implants. And then they actually do way more, which I had no idea. I don't know if it really make that much of a difference, but they do way more than the other implant options, which I'm like, whoa. So it can be associated with like back problems and other problems when you're talking about more weight, but that's probably gonna happen anyway depending on the size that you're going to. Oh, one more thing I forgot. When it comes to the fact that they don't hold up as well, in addition to rupturing or deflating, they also have more of a risk of rippling. So having basically like a wave-like pattern on the implant on your skin. So ideally you don't want that. You want a smooth skin surface that looks natural, and you don't want waves and ripples showing the water underneath basically. And that is way more likely to happen with saline implants. It's actually pretty relatively common. Like I say relatively common, but it's a higher percentage than other implants, and it's a lot higher than I feel like people are aware of. Like I hear that risk all the time. I hear people all the time talking about the fact that they have the rippling happening, which makes me really not want saline, but I do like the idea of the pros with saline. And also the pros of saline is they are cheaper usually. So that's also a pro to it, but I think we should go into the next implant, which is the silicone breast implant. And it is one of the most popular kinds. I say one of because the next one we're going to go over has been growing in popularity. But as for silicone, it is basically an implant filled with silicone gel. It's pretty self-explanatory on the names, but unlike the unlike the saline implants, FDA only cleared these for women over the age of 22. So if you're watching this video right now and you are not 22 and you are considering implants, unfortunately, silicone is not going to be an option for you, because they have not been cleared by the FDA for women under the age of 22. And I know personally I was considering implants way before the age of 22, and my consult that I actually had was before 22, and I was like, oh, this means I can't get silicone. And I was really considering the idea of silicone. It seemed like a better option for me personally, but I didn't have the option at the time when I was doing the consult. And that's a lot of the reason why I chose not to, was because of the price of them. I was young and broke, and still am broke, let's be honest. And also I couldn't do silicone. And silicone, a lot of people like it because of the fact that it feels more natural. So of the implant choices compared to saline, it is a more natural feeling, it's less firm, and it's less likely to ripple. So the rippling that we talked about is less likely to happen, which means they will look more natural and feel more natural than saline does. But that doesn't mean there's not cons that might make saline worth it for you, because of the fact that they are pre-filled, so they're not going to be putting the saline in you. It is a silicone gel, like basically ball, that they're going to be putting inside of your body. The incision that they have to do to put the implant in is larger. So you're going to have a bigger scar. It's not going to be drastically bigger, but it is something to consider. The hole they're putting inside your body or outside your body, through your body, is larger than with saline. And in addition to that, they are harder to detect leaks. So when we talked about the saline and the fact that it naturally absorbs into your body, and it's pretty obvious that it leaked because it's going to naturally absorb into your body, so you're going to all of a sudden have no boob on that side. It's not like that with silicone. So silicone can be harder to detect because it's not going to absorb into your body, so you're not going to notice much of a difference in size. And that can associate risk because obviously you need to know when a leak happens and it needs to be taken out and replaced. And it can cause additional health risks if it's leaking. And if you can't tell it's leaking, obviously that's not good. And implants are only available in round. So if you didn't know, implants can be round shaped or they can be teardrop shaped, but silicone cannot come in a teardrop shape unless they're the ones we're going to talk about next, which are a little bit different. They're not just a regular silicone implant. So since they only come in round, that means they might not look as natural as if you had chosen a teardrop shape. Teardrop shapes are chosen by a lot of women because they look more natural. It looks more like the breast does instead of being a round shape, which can be that like perky, you know, word we can't say because of YouTube. They can look a little bit fake and big instead of the more natural teardrop shape. That's not saying that round ones can't look natural though. And on some women, they look more natural than on other women. And this also very much depends on the size you're going to get. That is enough about silicone implants. Let's move into the next one, which is the one, like I said, is growing in popularity. People are going crazy for this product. It is a little bit newer on the market compared to regular breast implants. And that also means there's less studies done on it and less information on it, so keep that in mind. But that is the cohesive silicone gel breast implants. So those are what we talked about before, which are also known as a gummy bear or form stable implants that are filled with highly cohesive gel that makes them a little bit thicker and firmer than implants filled with traditional silicone gel. So that was a mouthful, but I figured I would give you the direct information on that one. And the pros of it are they have superior long-term performance in comparison to the saline and the silicone because they have lower rates of rupture, rippling, capsular contracture compared to those breast implants, which means that's a huge pro. That means way less health complications, way better chances of your breast implants looking natural and holding up, and they may maintain better long-term shape. So we kind of talked about that idea earlier when we talked about bottoming out. So the chance of bottoming out are less, and the chance of them holding their outward shape is better than other breast implants. And shape options are available way more than the other implants. With all that being said, we do have to talk about the cons of the product because, yeah, this newer product does have some cons even though it's growing in popularity. And one of the biggest ones for me is the fact that there isn't as much studies done on the long-term effects of this product because it is newer and it is different than the other product. So for me personally, it makes me question it a little bit more, but in general, I think you're never going to fully understand the long-term effects of products because they are always changing. But it is one thing to consider, and we are going to talk about one of the health risks that were recently discovered and associated with this product. But first, I want to talk about the general cons, and that being the fact that they are a little bit firmer to the touch. So unlike silicone gel, which is a little bit more natural feeling, this is a cohesive gel. So that gel is a little bit firmer to the touch and might not feel as natural. And also the placement also requires a longer incision because they are pre-filled too. So it can mean a bigger incision, and it also can mean you have less options on where they are going to insert the implant. So look and feel aside, I do have to mention the health risk that's been specifically linked to this type of breast implants. So they've been linked to a very rare circumstance of slow growing form of cancer of the immune system, which is what we talked about earlier in the general health risks. So that has been specifically linked with this type of breast implant. It's been more recently discovered. Now it is a very low risk, but it's still there. And maybe the risk of it is going to get higher as more studies are done. We don't really know. And other implants have not been linked as directly as this type of implant has. And they do have still a risk of malrotation that we talked about, even though it is a lower risk. It's only about 1%. These teardrop shaped implants can malrotate, so they can rotate around in their implant casing, which round ones cannot do. So keep that in mind. And the last con is actually the cost associated with them. And for me personally, that is a huge con. Even though they could be a better option and they are growing in popularity for a reason, they are the most expensive. Because if you're going to look at the general cost of implants, gummy bears are the most expensive implant you can get. They are pricey, and as a young person, my budget don't really like the price of that, because if you didn't know, implants in general are expensive. They are an elective surgery. They cost thousands of dollars to get no matter what state you are in. It's not a cheap thing to have, and there are later costs associated with it, and costs associated beyond the implant. You have the surgeon, you have the location, you have a hotel. If you have to stay at a hotel, you have the time you take off work. There's a lot of costs associated with them. So a more expensive implant might not be an option for a lot of people, and that is a huge con. It is not affordable. So of all the options, saline is going to be your cheapest option. It might not feel and look as natural as a silicone option, but it is going to be the cheapest option. And silicone is the second cheapest option in most cases. That was a lot of information on breast implants, so I hope it helped you out a little bit. If you want to go back to any different points in the video to recap on anything, or if you want to go to the links I linked down below that helped me do this video for you, feel free. But for me personally, I think it's worth the risk for me. I've wanted them for a long time, and in general, the risks of them aren't that high. I think the main deciding factor is going to be which type of implant I want. I think for me personally, saline is just something I am not interested in. So I think it'll be a debate between the silicone and the gummy bear ones, but I'll probably go with the silicone one mainly for the cost association with the gummy bears. That might be too much for me, and also the health risks of it, so I might go with that in between and do the gel ones. But I'll definitely let you guys know my journey and when I decide to start and what I decide to do and what it's all like. But that probably won't be for a while. But you know, hit that subscribe button and put on that bell notification so it'll let you know when that time comes. And I hope you have a great rest of your morning, evening, night, whatever it is for you. I'll see you Wednesday.